Hello, Clods! Welcome to another exciting episode of the Crystal Thems, a Steven Universe spoiler-filled rewatch podcast. I'm Liz, and as always, I am oh so lucky to have a wonderful co-host, Squid.
Hello, I am Squid. Happy to be here.
I'm really happy to talk about this episode.
Yes, we get our giant woman.
We get our giant woman, and the episode we are talking about is Season 1, Episode 12, Giant Woman. And for anyone who might not know what this is an episode where all we want to do is see them turn into a giant woman. Giant woman. So this is where we finally learn about fusions. It's weird that we only hear about them 12 episodes in. And while out on a mission, we finally see Pearl and Amethyst fuse into Opal, which is awesome.
It's so good. I love Opal. I wish we got more of her, but I get why we don't.
I mean, this is probably one of my favorite songs in the episodes.
It's a good song. It's a fun song.
It's a simple, fun song. When I was watching it for the episode, I was like singing along to it. My roommate was just laughing and shaking her head at me.
It's a fun little ditty. But also, so this episode aired on February 24th, 2014. Episode number 10 in the production code, despite airing as the 12th episode. And this episode is written and storyboarded by Joe Johnston and Jeff Liu, with 1.893 million US viewers upon air. So we're back to our normal operating episode numbers now that we're out of the special events for other shows happening on Cartoon Network.
Yes, which, I mean, that makes sense now. Now that we know that. Also, our title card, since I said last episode we tracked the title cards, we have a middle of day title card.
Yeah, middle of day. The water is a bit paler. Like it's a paler blue, and I wonder if it's just because they go higher in the air, so it just looks
Ooh,
different.
maybe. Yeah, like a reflection of the sky around them.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. But yeah, paler blue maybe for some higher altitudes. Look like they're higher above the ground, which is why it might be a bit paler, but it is middle of day look.
hmm But yeah, getting just at the start of the episode, my immediate thought, because I didn't remember how this episode started, I was like, why is Amethyst soaking wet playing chess? Or, sorry, checkers.
It's kind of a weird opening. Like, it's not
I was like, what happened?
right. It started and I had to stop it and I was like, am I on the Giant Woman episode? Because I forgot how this started, which, as Squid said, this starts with Amethyst and Pearl playing checkers, but there's an added bonus of Steven throwing water balloons at them with every. It sounds like every move they make, he'll be watching them.
Yeah. I'm wondering if he's doing the thing of like, oh, I have to throw this at you for it to go faster, or only during important moves. But as Pearl points out at one point, they're all important moves in checkers.
Every move. I am not a good checkers player.
Me neither. I love chess. I'm not great at checkers. I don't understand it.
I'm not great at either.
Chess is super fun and straightforward, and checkers doesn't make sense.
Most of my chess experience is playing chess outside and inside of Cracker Barrels. It's most of my checkers uh uh adventures. My cat is currently climbing all over me.
Beautiful. I've also paused at a perfect frame to catch an animation error. When Steven is holding, before he speaks and he says, now it's your move, when he's holding all of the water balloons, there is his hand, and then there's another outline for his hand that's actually on the water balloons, but it has his shirt as the design instead of his skin.
Oh, look at that.
Freeze frame on accident to get that animation error.
I think he has too many fingers. No, he has the right amount. It's just the 5 fingers look very weird. That's a great pause there.
Yeah, perfect freeze frame. I'll take a picture of it so that I can have it.
Please do. I just say, actually, so they're playing. Pearl is arguing that all of Checker's moves are important, and then of course Amethyst is just needling Pearl, as Amethyst tends to do. So Pearl does this one big move, and technically speaking, I believe Pearl cheats because it
Oh,
looks like she's pulling. Well, it's hard to. She's pulling a red disc from a red piece from her side. It's on her, facing her. So obviously, I don't think they've been kinged. And
mhm.
she jumps forward, then backwards, then forward again.
Oh, does she? I thought they were all forward movements.
No, she
But yeah.
definitely goes back for one. So
Oh.
technically speaking, Pearl cheated. I mean, I am not the most comprehensive chess and or checkers person, but as far as I know, until you king something, you can't move backwards.
She goes to the side, but not backwards. I'm trying to slow it down. But she jumps from her side
She jumps from
to.
her side, but she technically does go back because she jumps. So there's three. I don't know why we're getting so deep into this.
Yeah,
So
there's
there's
three in a
three right in a
row.
row, and she jumps over, and then she jumps back to get the next one, and then she jumps to the corner
Oh
again.
yeah. Yeah, she goes back. Yeah, I don't know if you can do that in checkers. Maybe?
You have to
If
be a
it's.
king to go backwards. You can only
Oh,
move forwards.
then yeah, okay. She didn't win.
She cheated.
Pearl cheated. I mean, she was
Pearl
probably
cheated.
going to win in the next couple of steps.
Oh, she was, and Amethyst isn't upset about it. Like Amethyst wants the water balloons thrown at her.
Yeah. Which also, I love how competitive Pearl got to then win. Like, oh, okay, I was having a fun time being polite, saying, "Oh, Amethyst, that's a great move." But the moment she was threatened with like, "Oh, you might lose," she goes, "Okay, never mind. I'm playing for real now. Here's me completely ruining the game, and like I've won."
Yeah, and so they start arguing, and Amethyst makes the comment of, "This is why we never form Opal."
Just
So they're arguing.
casual.
Steven jumps down, and Steven's, of course, like, "So what's Opal, y'all?"
Correct. The question we're also asking: What's Opal? Who's Opal? Also mysteriously dry, even though they were both immediately soaking wet 2 seconds ago. Dry as a
They're
bone.
made. They're made of light.
You know, light still has water. They should be rainbow
No.
colored for reflecting the light through the water.
Oh, they are.
I mean, they're very rainbow.
Eh. This
And
is the episode that we learned that Pearl can control sand.
yeah, she just does cute little sand
What's
sculptures, and they're adorable.
There's a technical term of it. It is that she is, oh God, I should have said there's a technical term.
I know, I saw that and went, I don't want to try and figure out how that word works.
Salmonconesis, because I'm assuming the P is silent, like
Yeah, probably
pterodactyl.
like Samokinesis?
Salmokinesis, the ability to manipulate sand, which this is a new ability for Pearl.
It is. I know I do think we see that again later.
I believe we do as well. So Pearl kind of pulls up to a little amethyst and a little pearl and makes a mini giant woman.
She does. She also makes the bit, and before that, which I just love, because Steven is asking who Opal is, and they say it's an amalgam of, Pearl and Amethyst. And Pearl is trying to explain it and just goes, "Oh, is water just an amalgamation of hydrogen and oxygen?" And truly, I was like, "Yes, I don't understand what you're trying to say here, Pearl, because yeah, that is correct. It's just those two things together."
Right, like technically, yes, that is in fact what water is.
Yeah. And I
If
just
I like kind of had to look up like amalgamation. I was like, no, that's
That's
you
correct.
know,
If
I
you
don't.
mash together hydrogen and oxygen, you get water. Well, two hydrogen and an oxygen.
I say, I guess maybe you could argue that it's actual like it's not just shoving them together. It's actually having to like have a specific amount of each.
Yeah. But truly, she points out, she says, analogy lost on, which, like, yeah, this is lost on Stephen and Amethyst, who are on my side, and also ours. I'm just saying, like, yes, it is both of those things mashed together.
Right.
I don't know what else it would be.
Right. Like that is indeed what it is. I don't know what you're trying to say there, Pearl.
Girl, you're too smart for this. I can't do it.
I mean, they do use the word amalgamation in a children's cartoon, which I respect.
Yeah.
So, well, we get the kind of explanations of who Opal is. And Amethyst explains that, Opal is this like cool, powerful, stone cold Betty is what her full thing is. And goes, and she's kind of tall. So stone cold Betty is me. Kind of tall is because of Pearl.
I love that that's the contribution Pearl gives. Tall.
Tall.
That's it. Nothing else. Just tall.
Like, that's pretty savage.
Exactly. I mean, to be fair, a lot of Opal's design, the tall is Pearl, the color palette is Amethyst, mostly. Just a little bit lighter because it's Pearl and her paleness.
Right.
And I guess Pearl's eyes.
Pearl's eyes.
And bird
That's
nose.
they're kind of like washed out, but yeah. So to stop this crazy argument happening, we get Garnet, and we also, I'm noticing, we get our first full look, I think, at the Rose portrait.
You're right. Also, we do get Garnet back from her own missions again, which is clear now that, like, yeah, she just casually is on missions all the time without people.
Yeah, she's just like, I'm out. But yeah, Steven's so excited, and it's just kind of like, oh, what'd you bring me? I brought you a rock, which I feel.
We were talking about it earlier, listeners. I'm moving locations soon, and my biggest concern is where am I going to put all my rocks when I'm packing? Where will they go?
And I tend to find rocks wherever I go. And specifically, I try to find fossil rocks, which I have
Ooh,
many, and I'm very excited because a little paleontologist in me is super excited. And I get weird looks because I lick them
we got to check
because
if they're bones.
bones are porous. Then your tongue sticks to it a little bit, and then people are like, "Why?" I wash off the rock before I do this, guys. Don't worry. Like, I usually take it and wash it off in a bathroom.
I
I just
have,
want to see if they're bones or not.
yeah, I do some. And now I have a question because some gemstones are porous. The gems, would some of those stick to your tongue if you licked them? I imagine you can't get close enough to any of the crystal gems to do so, but would it happen?
I would assume not, because it's kind of like a different porousness. I mean, sandstones are pretty porous, or like pumice is a very porous rock, but it doesn't stick to your tongue.
Okay.
But like bone, because as the calcium is being leached out and fossilized, your bone is super porous, which is how your blood supplies and stuff get to your bone marrow. Your bone marrow gets out, supplies your blood and whatnot. Um, so I mean, it will stick to your tongue. I've licked
Yeah.
many of rock. It's
Now
just
I'm
such a
wondering.
weird thing to say onto a podcast.
Yeah. Now I'm wondering because I know pearls are porous. Pearl won't let this happen. She'll stab you before you could get close enough. But pearls are
Pearls don't
technically
stick to your tongue.
okay. I was like, they are organic. So do they?
Mm-mm. They don't stick to your tongue.
Okay. Also, I don't think I could check. I think she would again stab me before I could get
Oh,
close.
for sure, stab you.
Steven might be able to
100%.
on accident, but I don't think anyone else could get close enough to Pearl's actual gemstone to check.
Steven has for sure licked all of them. And speaking of Steven licking things, so the crystal gems are talking
Rock in mouth.
and they're hearing, about the earth and heaven beetle, and Steven's just chewing on a rock.
Which it's so bad for your teeth. Like
So
there's a
bad for your
difference
teeth.
between licking it and chewing on it with your teeth. That's bad for them.
Full on just chewing on a rock. But Garnet, keeping with the theme of Garnet's going off on her own, she's like, I'm gonna go get the earth beetle. And they're like, why? And she's like, well, I can swim through lava, which this is kind of the first time we're hearing about her having this ability, which definitely comes from Ruby, who is a heat-based
We
entity.
we get that for sure from Ruby and I think Keystone Motel when Ruby
Yeah,
mentions I can swim through lava.
right. So we've Garnet magics some goggles over her sunglasses,
Love it.
and then the band goes over her hair and squishes it in, which is such a nice little detail.
Just poof, squish. Also, the fact because her hair is already a little bit squished. I'm like, was she? Did she have those on earlier? Was she just kind of hanging out and took them off when she got here, and then has to put them right back on?
Oh, for sure, yeah. I would totally say definitely.
Yeah, Also, I'm so excited. I love the Heaven and Earth Beetle. I
They're
think they're
great.
great.
Love them. Steven puts his rock down.
Which he does. Stopped cheering on it, so he does put it down. And then Amethyst, and Pearl are off for the Heaven Beetle. And Garnet does her foreshadowing again.
And tell Steven that he has to help keep the harmony. Which is definitely, I feel like, a hint towards how they fuse.
Yeah, it's just being a
It's
harmony.
very musically based. They hop on the warp pad, all grumpy, and we're off.
Yeah. And also, I think emotional harmony to an extent, because they are fighting. This whole episode, we've seen Amethyst and Pearl, argue, but they are
They
genuinely
went
just
at it.
the whole episode. They are at each other's throats a lot.
Yeah, no, they're going at each other hardcore.
Mhm. I feel like they got in a fight earlier and still have to just be around each other.
Yeah, I think Steven probably is the one who got them to play checkers because they were fighting over something
Yeah,
and they would do anything for Steven.
anything and everything.
Anything and everything. So now they get warped to a giant mountain range with a path
Truly, so many
and
stairs.
so many stairs. And the whole start of it is just Steven being like, turn into Opal, turn into the Opal. Do it, do it, do it.
Yeah, he is pretty insistent about it. There is one point where he's like, "Turn into Opal and give me a piggyback ride," and I go, "Someone should carry Steven. This is too many stairs for a human."
There were so many stairs. We we go off and we're starting to go up the ride. There's some nice little beetle details in like the in the steps, in the columns for the steps.
Yeah, which the beetle details confuse me just a bit because they're only beetles when they're corrupted. But we have an Earth beetle who we'll get to in the episode. They don't look like that as their normal forms
I
unless
mean, you
they
can
can
kind of
turn into beetles.
I mean, so they've been corrupted for thousands of years. So, and
True.
it looks like this was kind of built around them. So I would say whoever built this area has only ever seen them as beetles.
That's fair. I was wondering, I was like, is this built by humans or was this built by the gems? In
I
which
think
case,
this is built
that
by
would
humans.
okay. If they're built by humans, that makes more sense. Because I was wondering, it's like, why would gems build this and shape them like beetles if they don't even look like beetles?
I think humans found them and started worshiping him and built this.
I mean, that tracks. That makes
This
more sense.
like kind of temple like thing for them.
Yeah.
So they start heading up the stairs. Steven's very happy. We see for the first time Steven Jr.
You meet Stephen Jr. He's hanging out eating a rose, interestingly.
I know.
Where did you get that?
How about that for a nice little detail? I
Yeah.
would also like to know, but you know what? I'm gonna respect Steven Jr.'s privacy.
Yeah. I mean, he seems to be less respecting of that for others, but he's a kid, literally.
Right.
Um, so leaving him be.
And Steven tries to play up being scared and was like, hurry, he's gonna kill us all. Save us. And Amethyst and Pearl just walk off.
Yeah. I do love Pearl walking over saying he's not deadly, and then Stephen Jr. immediately biting her hand.
Yeah. And yelling back at her.
Yeah, which perfect. Yes, that's how you know she's not. This is not a dangerous goat. He's just kind of annoying.
Which goats should be.
That's what all goats are like.
And then we get our song. All I wanna see is someone who giant woman. So good. And we kind of get a little montage of them doing stuff and Amethyst and Pearl kind of poking at each other.
Digging into each other. Yeah. For honestly, it's very much just minor jabs at each other that they don't need to do. Like Amethyst pretending to be a shark and getting Pearl wet, Pearl kicking dirt onto Amethyst.
And Amethyst's face. Yeah.
Like
Just,
it's unnecessary.
Yeah, a little kind of sibling jibes of, Steve and Amethyst are having fun and bouncing on thing, and Pearl's stop, and then they start fighting, and
Yeah. Which, to be fair, I will say, Pearl is right on the please don't jump on the very loose rope bridge that will get you injured if it breaks. Please don't. Not the rope bridge. Somewhere
not
else,
the rope
maybe.
bridge. The song continues, and someone ended up did giving Steven a piggyback ride. We have Steven Jr. giving Steven a piggyback ride,
Yes. Sweet, sweet boy.
carrying him all the way up, but then Steven Jr. starts freaking out and jumping across like floating rocks.
Which, again, I feel like the closer anything is to gem stuff, the more magical it gets. Because so far we've been climbing up an actual mountain and, like, okay, humans could have reasonably built this. And then
Right.
the floating rocks, and I go, that cannot be human made. That has to be, or human made because gem magic is a real thing in this world and has been since the dawn of humanity.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe the longer a gym is in a place, the more, I don't know, magic or whatever leaches into the surrounding area.
That's what I'm thinking. Because also, we know gems physically can embed themselves into things. And as we'll
Hmm.
find out later, the heaven beetle isn't the only gem here.
Right.
So
Right, exactly.
yeah, I think just being around gems kind of invites magic to the area for humans.
Yeah, so I mean, this at one point, this little rock ledge probably was just like a free hanging kind of bridge, like rock bridge, and then over time it's broken up and just stayed floating.
Yeah.
So Stephen begs for Opal to show up. Of course, they're like, no. Then Amethyst just grabs Stevens and yeets him partially across.
Which I know that again it's trying to paint
Wait,
Pearl
that
as
tracks.
yeah, I know that the show keeps trying to paint Pearl as like, oh, she's irrational and she's too worrying. But like, there are certain things that even if it turned out well, you should still be a little bit worried about, like throwing Steven across a chasm and hoping he lands on one of the rocks.
Right. And I just love, so then they're goofing off because Pearl's freaking out, and Amethyst jumps and flings Steven off, and her face when she looks at Pearl of being like, oh,
Oh, this actually, you were right. You were right the whole time. This was bad.
whoops. But they work together because it's Steven, and Steven brings them together.
Yeah. And Steven makes a good little point of like they do work together. When they work together, they do it well, and they probably should do that all the time because it was quick. I don't think they had a moment to even talk to each other. They probably looked at each other. Amethyst immediately summons her whip and then ties it around Pearl's waist, and they just go. They work
Hmm.
well together when they're not at each other's throats.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, and that's how it always is they always, when Steven's involved, they can always work together.
Yeah.
So they save Steven, and Steven's like, "Hey, you guys work together. That's great." And then immediately they're like, "Rrr."
No, we don't. We don't work together. But unfortunately, because Steven Jr. ran ahead, he now does need to walk up the rest of these stairs.
So many stairs, and it leads them to a big temple, and you're like, "We're here," which then leads them to a very small temple surrounded by water, which is adorable.
It's so cute and tiny. I know us one ancient craftsman had to have spent their entire life building this tiny temple.
Yes, and then just filling it with stuff. So we have itty bitty plants, itty bitty bong. We get the beetle bongos and Beetle Baby Book. We also have
Yeah.
a beetle gaming system.
And an alarm clock. So some of this has to be recent. Like I can understand, oh, the bed could have been older, but and maybe the chest and the book. But even then the books have modern designs and there's a
Yep.
lamp in here and
There's a lamp. There's
glasses.
little glasses. I mean, it's a very adorable, cozy room.
It's super cute. But yeah, there's a TV with the game station on the bedside table. There's also a Game Boy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a Game Boy. I see it.
Yeah, also a backpack with HB for, I guess, Heavenly Beetle.
Then Beetle.
Who did this?
Fantastic.
I ha-
I love.
the Beetle has to have been the one. She has to have been the one to do this. She's been here the whole time.
Oh, she's totally done this, and I just love this little detail they put in, like the HB backpack. Come on.
Exactly. Also, her having paper on the floor and like a sweater. But
It
she's a
shows
beetle. She doesn't wear clothes.
how maybe she does wear a little sweater. She can get cold too.
She's a tiny beetle in a tiny sweater.
Tiny beetle in a tiny sweater, but the beetle's not there. So
Yeah,
Pearl starts freaking out because the beetle's not there.
which at Amethyst going like, oh, why don't you worry more? Amethyst, you know Pearl is a worrier. That's just what she's like.
Right. Like she is mom.
This Pearl has anxiety to the max. Pearl is you took anxiety and made it physically a person.
Yeah, so
She's
they start nitpicking each other again.
of course they're mad at
Amethyst,
each
you're
other.
not doing anything. And then I mean they're going at it, and Steven Jr. just sadly looking until Steven Jr. starts freaking out
Mhm. He starts just screaming. Well, he looks off into the sky.
and starts screaming. And then suddenly a giant bird thing appears.
Yep, it pops out of the water, which not the sky. It was hanging out in the water underneath the temple.
Yeah, just this big bird and eats Steven Jr.,
Yep, I love Steven's tears and his little my son.
my son.
Hilarious.
They go to their usual what we're trying to do, and the big bird eats Pearl's spear.
Yep. Pearl just no hesitation summons her spear and then throws it like dead accuracy. If it wasn't for the fact that it ate that, it would have been a good shot.
It would have been a great shot. So then they finally realize that, okay, maybe we do have to fuse. So we get kind of the two.
Well, right before that, we learn later when we meet the Heaven and Earth beetles as gems and not beetles that they have an afternoon constitutional every day, and I have to wonder, did the actual beetle have an afternoon constitutional that they still do every day and just got scooped up by this bird while they were taking a little walk in the afternoon? That's just what happened. She was just on her way.
100%. I have no doubt that's what happened, is that she was taking her little afternoon constitutional and was walking around. And then all of a sudden, this giant bird flew up and ate it.
It's not fair. She has her cute little house and her cute little walk. Let her do this.
Yeah, like ruined her routine and everything. Is very rude.
So, so rude. Also, I do want to, for listeners, this bird does not have eyes. I don't think we mentioned that. It can't, I think
It's
it's
just a
just
beak.
sensing them. It's just a
Yeah,
whole beak. Just a mouth that opens and closes, not a
I
single
think
eye.
I think it's sent as gems.
Yeah, which, given what we see inside of its stomach later, makes sense.
Makes sense.
But it did eat, well, it ate Stephen Jr., but when Stephen Jr. was next to Stephen.
Steven.
So,
Well, that's when it sensed it, because then Steven moves away. But yeah, like it
yeah.
sent Steven right next to it and it just went, oh, a thing, gulp.
Yeah. But no, it tries to eat inside the temple, the big temple, and that's when Stephen's excited about fusing. Because,
Yeah,
yeah,
so
they
we
do
get
eat it.
Pearl starts doing some ballet. Amethyst does the stanky leg.
Which, this whole episode is decidedly 2010s, because, I mean, it's the stanky leg, it's the goat screaming meme. The whole
Yep.
episode with Stephen Jr. is just that goat screaming meme.
Yep.
So, whew, you could tell this came out in the 2010s.
Oof, truly. So they start to fuse and then it falls apart.
Immediately. Also, I will say, Amethyst blames Pearl and says that Pearl hit her in the face, as if Amethyst didn't dip her and then Pearl had to immediately compensate for the height difference.
Yeah, and bash her head against the ground.
Exactly. She's like, Pearl, you did this. And I go, Pearl did not. Pearl was trying her best, and then you grabbed her, dipped her, and she had to turn her body around so she didn't go face first into the ground.
Right.
And her arm did hit you, but again, also the height difference. You're significantly shorter than her, and she clearly was like reaching for something that was not where she's like, can't grab onto a tall person. You're short.
Right. They just out of sync. They were not harmonious.
They were not harmonious.
So they start arguing again, and Steven's just kind of like, hey, stop.
Yeah. Hey, I have a note that Steven, this is not about you, because he's like, if you guys keep fighting, I won't get to see a giant woman.
I mean, to be fair, I also love to see giant.
I mean, that's true. But he's literally in tears about, don't fight, I want to see a giant woman.
I understand. I would also cry if I had a chance to see a big, buff, strong lady and couldn't. It'd make me sad.
Yeah, it would bring me to tears if it was. I knew that that could happen, and I didn't get it
Because
because
people are
what you're
fighting?
arguing,
Upset. And
evil.
then she's like, "Oh, and I could get eaten," which then immediately leads to
Stephen getting eaten.
Steven getting eaten. And Amethyst's face is pretty hilarious of like,
Her face is too funny, which I feel like that's also a meme.
"Oh,
Like
yeah.
one of the troll faces.
Yes. It 100% is." So we end up inside of this bird, and Steven finds a goat skull and thinks it's Steven Jr. and realizes it is not, because Steven Jr. is sitting on a pile that is made up of a shopping cart, two different tires, a chair, a globe, a football, a like stereo boombox, looks like a bamboo plant, some swords, a lucky cat.
Some the like soda rings.
The soda rings, always cut that up. Don't hurt the sea turtles, y'all.
Yep, you should hurt this bird, but not the sea turtles.
Not the sea turtles.
Also, truly so many human skeletons and swords and shields. This bird has killed people.
I mean, this is probably where all the people went who built the temple for the heavenly beetle.
Yeah, or tried to defend it, tried to protect the temple, did not get to.
Did not get to. But
Yeah.
we also see its insides are just covered in gems.
The thing that's interesting to me is it looks like the crystal gems their bubble room. Like their bubble
Yeah,
room is
they're
pretty
bubbled.
similar.
Yeah,
Yeah, which
very
again,
similar.
the bubble room is super like organic, which makes me think that this type of gem is what the temple is made out of.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Because this gem is here at a temple, and
Yeah.
it's clearly part of it. If it's been here for this long with this old, swords and shields, then it's been here probably the whole time that the Heaven Beetle has. And I wonder if that's just. We know that the gems use living gemstones to make buildings. I wonder if this is just the type of gem you use for a temple, and it also got corrupted.
I was saying it's just a super corrupted gem.
Yeah, so it's still doing what it's supposed to do, which is housing gems, but this is the corrupt version where it bubbles them all. Also,
Yeah, no,
there's so many gems in here.
I get that though. I would actually make sense of maybe it's some shattered gems that got corrupted, like shattered corrupted gems that kind of formed together to make this fused together
Yeah,
to
to
make
make
this
this.
massive thing.
Hmm.
Because, we see Steven Jr. chewing on something, ends up being the heavenly beetle, which Steven fights to take.
Yeah, Steven Jr., you stop putting stuff in your mouth. I mean, you're just like your dad, putting rocks in your mouth.
Right, stop eating things.
Both of you, stop
But
it.
they get thrown off, and then a giant arm appears, and then multiple giant arms, like four in total. And of course, Steven's freaking out, and Steven Jr. gets grabbed, and then Steven gets grabbed,
And
and ends up
then
being
a
giant woman.
giant woman.
So we finally see Opal.
She's gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
I know we can't get more Opal, but I really would just love to see her in everything. Please and thank
Oh,
you.
yeah, I love Opal.
She's so good. So I
Yeah.
promised some fun facts about Opal.
Yes, please.
The fun facts are one, so Opal is one, she's so cool. Two, she's voiced by Amy Mann, who Rebecca Sugar has gone on record saying that she is the biggest musical inspiration for Rebecca, the reason she started making space themed content at all. And it was Mann's 2000 a song from her 2002 album that made Rebecca Sugar get inspiration for even making comics and things around space. She is one of Rebecca Sugar's greatest inspirations, and she was so excited to have her on the as Opal, which is probably also why she can't be Opal constantly.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I think that's so cool and so interesting because yeah, we only really get Opal's singing voice here and then in the movie,
Yeah.
which is also
Oh, that's so awesome.
yeah, Opal is in the movie. She helped compose Drift Away, and she sings Independent Together with her bandmate Ted Leo, who voices Steg. So just her two bandmates, two people in a band, sing the song Independent Together from the both.
Oh my gosh, Rebecca Sugar must have freaked out that they
I know.
could get Amy Mann, someone that they really looked up to and was inspired by.
Yeah. It's so cool.
Thank you for sharing that. That is very awesome.
Yeah. And so I just had to put that in because I know that must have been super cool.
That is very cool.
She was also on when Cartoon Network had that Dove self-esteem project for Steven Universe.
Mm-hmm.
Amy Mann was also there as Opal.
Oh,
When it was just it was about fusions and having self-esteem.
I truly love that.
It's so sweet. Yeah, I think that's so cool. You're like you're my biggest inspiration for making music. Can you be on the show that I got because you inspired me to do these kinds of things? That has to be so cool.
I really, really love that.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's my Opal fun fact. Super cool. I also think Opal is the coolest of the gems. She's my favorite fusion.
Ooh, I yeah, this actually she might be one of my I really love Smoky Quartz though.
Smoky Quartz is good, but Opal or Rainbow 2.0, and I'll defend Rainbow 2.0 till my grave. Everyone says, "Oh, we don't like him." I do. I think he's great. Stop it. Don't make fun of him.
I mean, my truly favorite fusion is Stevani.
Well, yeah, okay. That
If we take Stevani out of it,
I forgot about Stefani for a moment. Yeah, that is the best fusion.
the best fusion Stevani. If we're taking Stevani out of it, and Garnet, take Garnet out as well.
Yeah, Stefani and Garnet don't count because they're so cool and perfect. There's too many fusions in the show because Road Knight is also great.
Road Knight's great. Oh,
There's too many. Okay, I just think Opal's perfect, and that's
oh,
the
I love
most I
Opal.
can
Opal is wonderful.
give. I have too many favorites.
And I was sitting here thinking, I'm like, oh, yeah. I also had a thought I'm going to say earlier is that so we have the line in the song, but if it were me, I'd really want to be a giant woman.
Stephen, Rose.
Eh, Right. I mean, that's some good foreshadowing to when Steven helps form Obsidian, who is they, them, she, her,
Yeah, a giant woman.
a giant woman. I mean, also, Savani is a female presenting fusion,
Hmm.
though they, them
They them.
is
That
a
is
female
canon.
presenting fusion.
Yeah,
So a partial giant woman.
partial giant woman. Also, Stephen, you'll get to be part. Someone will mistake you for a giant woman, Pink Diamond, but you're tiny, so you'll get that later.
You also get that later. So that's nice little foreshadowing that happens.
Yeah.
So Opal saves Steven, and then the big bird explodes and turns into just a beak with wings of little bird shards.
Yeah, it breaks into actual gem shards, and then those gem shards reform into smaller birds that are just a beak with wings.
Yeah. Opal backflips away,
Because that's so cool.
and then we kind of see that she pulls out the spear and the whip and then combines them into the dope bow.
Oh yeah, her energy belt. It's so cool.
It's so cool.
So cool.
So awesome. And she shoots a single arrow and just kind of like bubbles all of these gem shards
Yes, I love
in one shot.
her. But then she has a super sweet moment where she turns around and walks over to Steven to hold his hand, and he's like, "Do you know who I am?"
Let's say Steven's expression is also my expression when I encounter a giant woman.
The stars in his eyes. Yeah.
Yeah. Just mouth agape, stars in the eyes. I have also had that expression with giant bow.
Sometimes you see a giant woman and you go, "Hey,
Oh,
hi," louder than everyone else. "Hello, how
right.
are you doing?"
Right. But yeah, he just has this moment where he's like, like you said, do you know me? And Opal sings the verse.
Yep, he's such a sweet little. He's like twiddling his fingers. I'm rewatching it right now, and he's just like so shy.
And he's so nervous that she doesn't know who he is.
Yeah, which would be devastating.
Right? So kind of I mean, I think it's also part of being like, are my are my family members still in there?
Yeah. And we know that fusions are their own people. They are different people with, kind of the same memories, but also completely different like emotions and lived experiences and personalities. And
Right.
it's fun to see Opal's. Opal is like a fun person. She seems like she's a little awkward, but like kind of fun, likes to hang out with Steven, but can be competent. She feels like an amalgamation of Pearl and Amethyst.
Very much so. I mean, it's one giant metaphor of a relationship, which we find out much later.
Mhm.
Of it's two people acting as a unit.
Yeah.
Because, when you're in a relationship, you're two separate people, but you're as a couple, you guys are making decisions together
Yeah.
and creating a world around you together despite having two different feelings for it. So, I mean, it's a really, really brilliant, in my opinion, I think it's a really smart way to show a relationship without showing a relationship.
Yeah, to show that connection and like what does it look like, and also the fact that visually they can show healthy and unhealthy relationships by the way fusions are presented to you. Like
Yes.
Garnet and Opal, that's a pretty healthy relationship. We know Garnet is what the show will call a perfect fusion, where she's perfectly all of the parts of those two gems. Whereas
Yeah.
Opal, a pretty decent fusion, but not a perfect one, is still like missing some aspects from each gem. And then we get further fusions down the line where you can tell, oh, this is bad and unhealthy
This is
because
a
even
toxic thing.
yeah, even the fusion looks like it's unwell. Like you don't look okay.
And it's not even just like a romantic coupling. I mean, it's you and a
Mhm.
friend.
Exactly. Friends, family, any kind of
I mean,
relationship that you
I'll
have.
use my roommate and I together. I mean, we have to make decisions together for our life as we live together. So,
Yeah.
like, we are a single couple unit, despite the fact that we are not romantic in any way, shape, or form,
Mhm.
or our friendship. I mean, we work together to make this podcast.
Yeah. We make
Um,
decisions as a unit for this podcast. So,
yeah, I just love that it shows those different relationships in such a really interesting manner.
mhm. It's a good, I love it.
That's what that big rant was. So the Opal and Steven rolls up. Garnet is
Wiping lava off?
drying her hair off of lava.
Yeah, it's like she's just got a towel on her head, but there's literal not steam, smoke. Like it's got the grayness of smoke, and I go,
Yeah,
that was is there lava in the house? Get rid of that.
right. And so the Garnet asks about the beetle, and Opal's like, "Oh, we didn't get the beetle."
Mhm.
So then they unfuse and start arguing again.
Yeah, I do love that Opal immediately just has like an oh snap face, and the worrying is immediate is what separates them. Like, oh god, oh we
Yeah,
forgot.
but it's all good because Steven has it,
Yep.
and Garnet puts it in a little terrarium.
I love that. I do love that they're arguing because Pearl was like, "Hey, Amethyst, it's your fault we forgot. You got distracted." And Amethyst goes, "It's your fault. You were doing all those crazy backflips." I'm like, "One, the backflips are necessary for being
I mean,
cool.
how else are you supposed to save Steven and get away from things?
Yeah,
Walking?
walk, lame. And two, you both forgot. You both
You
immediately forgot about this.
immediately forgot. It's
You
all right.
saw
Steven
Steven?
saves the day.
Yeah, but Steven saves the day, pulls out the beetle from his pocket. Where's Steven Jr.? Did you leave him? I imagine they left
S-
him on the mountain.
Steven Jr. got left behind.
He did get left behind. And then they go in the terrarium. The Heaven and Earth Beetle are not in any way violent. They're just kind of around.
They're just there. That's why I think they get to put into a little terrarium and bubbled away.
Yeah, like the terrarium gets bubbled, not them specifically, which I love. They're just hanging out.
They're just hanging out in their little home.
I will say it is definitely smaller than the temple that the Beetle already had with all of her stuff in it.
Yeah, like none of her stuff, none of the creature comforts. Obviously, not like a primitive thing, 'cause this is literally just like rocks and plants and sand, like not even
Exactly.
tiny little apartment. But it's still cute.
It's adorable. I wish we could see what the Earth Beetle had going on at the bottom of a lava lake. I have to
I
know what
I
tiny
want to know what
apartment.
that episode was. Yeah, I feel like
Yeah,
it'd be covered in rock and roll posters
please. It'd
and
be
like a
so
little
cute.
electric guitar.
Yeah, and we do get to meet the Heaven and Earth Beetles. Spoilers. We'll meet them later when they're not corrupted. They're adorable. They're so cute and tiny,
They're very itty bitty and cute.
itty bitty cute, and they, in the future when they're quite literally in the future, when they have their afternoon constitutionals, it's always a cute little walk. I love
Yeah.
them. They're so tiny and adorable. I hope she gets her backpack. I just want the Heaven Beetle. It has HB on there. You have to get her little backpack.
I hope they go and get her.
Get her backpack and her books and her tiny Game Boy. Do you know
Uh,
how
Get
hard
her
it must
gaming
have been?
system.
That there's no someone made that tiny for her. That has to
Yeah,
be so hard.
she had a special order that.
Exactly. You got a special order. A tiny Game Boy for a tiny beetle?
A lot of work to not get it.
Her sweater, you gotta go get that.
I hope they packed her up her apartment.
Yeah, they're like, hey, we packed it up for you. We got it.
So, it gets bubbled. Garnet's walking away and is like, one day you'll have to learn this for your fusion. Steven's like, oh yeah. What?
I was thinking, I can do that? And I go, oh, Steven, you can do extra fusions.
You can do a lot of fusions.
I also love while Steven's doing that, Pearl and Amethyst are just staring at the floor like, oh my, you're right, we did fuse today. We did work together and actually like each other for a few hours.
Yep. We did that.
We did that. But Steven's, wait, I can do that?
I can do that. And it's a nice change from how the episode usually ends of like, it starts to star out and then all of a sudden it stops. Being like, what?
Yeah. And the answer is Steven, yes, you will get that. You will get more fusions than the gems get because there will be humans on the table.
You'll get so much. So much. I'm very excited for it. And this was a wonderful episode.
Yes. It was fun. I just like seeing, again, I love seeing Opal. I think she's great. I think she's perfect in every way, and I'm so happy to see her and get to spend time with her.
Yes, same.
And also just a fun episode where Amethyst and Pearl have to get along.
They have to.
Because you guys fight all the time and we're not doing that anymore. Get along.
I mean, I appreciate that they're the first ones to fuse, that we see fuse in the show.
Yeah, well, we actually don't get to see them fuse successfully.
We don't know, but they're the fierce fusion that we see, that we know are aware that they are a fusion.
Yeah. I'm choosing to believe that Opal is Amethyst and Pearl's get along shirt. Those like big shirts you have to wear to get along with other people. It's like we're both in the same shirt. That's Opal.
I got it.
This is our get along shirt.
That's their yes. Yes. 1,000 times yes.
Love it.
1,000 times yes. That's their get along shirt. That's gonna stick with me forever now.
Yeah, love that. No, but I mean that's the episode. That's
it. That's a giant woman.
That's our giant woman. That's our introduction to fusion in Steven Universe, and we will only have more to come.
Oh, so many more great fusions to come.
Yes.
And I'm so excited.
Same here. But with that, wrapping us up, I think.
If you want to see other giant things, at this time it's been going on for a while as we record this, and when this gets released, it will have been a while. Keep an eye out on our Insta, which is the Crystal Thems podcast, because I travel a lot for work, and especially during the summer, because I go to conventions for my job. So I've been posting just some of the weird, cool roadside attractions that I keep seeing as I'm out in the world. So definitely keep an eye on that. You can also see it on our Twitter account, or X, or whatever, which is Crystal Thems Pod. And feel free to always shoot us an email. We're at crystalthemspodcast@gmail. Any of your opinions about the episode, please don't send me things. We will cry. But, if you have anything else you want to add, or just want to drop a hey, hello, how are ya? Please do. We see everything.
Yes, we do. You can also find us on Spotify and Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, except for Apple.
We're still fighting.
We're fighting.
Make sure you like and subscribe and listen to all our stuff.
Yes.
Our theme music is the Fae Mild.
Yep, the Fae Mild by Arcane Anthems.
So check out their stuff too. There's some great songs for all D&D and kind of fun fantasy. I've actually kind of taken to playing them when I am cleaning, because it makes me feel, I don't know, kind of whimsical.
You
as
have
I
to have
clean.
whimsy in your lives. Listeners, please have whimsy in your life.
You know what you also need in your life?
Tell me.
You need to remember that you're one of us, Claudes. We wouldn't be the Crystal Thems without you.
That's right.
We'll catch you on the flip side.